Yo, what's going on YouTube? I'm Sue, and as this video goes live, hopefully the Etheria Restart Final Beta is live as well. For many of you, this will be your first chance actually experiencing Etheria Restart, and I know you probably have a lot of questions. I've already done a video on 9 SR characters that I think are actually worth trying out in the early game to have you have kind of the smoothest transition possible into the mid game, characters basically that are worth considering. This is the accompanying video to that, except for the SSR, basically the 5-star rarity characters. You see, in Etheria Restart, there is this targeted summon system. It's kind of like your starter SSR character or a selective summon from other games. So how it works is you're going to hit this change wish button, and you'll choose whichever character interests you, and it'll kind of generate a banner for them, which is going to have a pity of 40 summons. If you pull an SSR character on this banner, it is guaranteed to be the character that you have selected from your targeted summon. After you acquire the character, well, then the banner goes away, and then you're stuck with the featured banners as well as the permanent summon. Now, just like with the SR video where I talked about 9 characters that are worth considering, I'm going to do very much the same here. I'm going to talk about 9 SSR characters that I think might be worth a look at from the targeted summon. They're going to be of various different degrees of strength, but they all have something about them, I think, that makes them very interesting. And it's based on my experiences with not only them in the previous closed beta test, but my time with them here on the early access server. So let's not waste any more time. Let's just jump into it with the first one, who is this guy on your screen here. And this is Helkid. He was nerfed since the last beta, but it's hard to deny that the character's kit isn't really strong. So his ultimate Shroud Barrier is an AoE attack that generates a Shroud Barrier on everyone on your team. And as you can see here, Shroud Barrier is essentially a shield that protects everyone on your team. And while your team has it, they're immune to all debuffs for the duration. The skill 2 is an AoE attack down, basically further reducing the damage your team takes, making the barrier last longer. And it also helps refresh the duration. And his basic attack skill is a stun that gets essentially 100%, or at least up to 100% stun rate, as long as he has the barrier. So the character is just a really strong bruiser that'll deal with a lot of pesky crowd control effects and kind of is like a pseudo tank, pseudo sustain. He's kind of like an all-rounder when you think about it, right? You're going to be getting barriers to protect your team. He's not necessarily a main tank, but he also does some damage and he also has some control. So overall, even though he's been nerfed, I think he's one of the most well-rounded characters that you could actually take from the selective summon. After him, I want to talk about Beyontin. This was my character of choice from the previous closed beta test. And I think this character is just ridiculous, right? So first off, let's talk about the ultimate here, Karma Abyss. It gives an attack buff and a crit damage buff for everyone on your team. And then you also get 2 stacks of this Underworld Flower ability here. As you can see, as long as you have Underworld Flower, it reduces the damage that Beyontin takes by 5% for each stack. And whenever anyone on your team dies, it consumes 1 stack of Underworld Flower to revive them with 40% of their max HP and increase their turn meter by 35%. Just a ridiculous skill when you think about it. It's just a full team damage amp on both types of both attack and crit damage, and then just a ridiculous safety net. And if that wasn't enough, this S2 Soul Whirl here is one of the most insane skills in the entire game when I first read it. So it is a single target move for one of your allies. It guarantees that their turn starts next, and it reduces their skill cooldowns by up to 2 turns. And also, it can target fallen allies to revive them to give them a turn. So the character just has multiple revives, tons of turn meter for your entire team, and just ridiculous buffs overall. Just a total package support that, honestly, I have a hard time seeing how this character won't be useful to many players. I think it's one of the strongest things that you could take here in the targeted summon. After that, we come to Veronika, who is another character that I have tried out on the early access server. I basically started an account with her and tried her out. She has been nerfed since the last beta. Now, the thing about Veronika is she is basically a really powerful tank, but in my experience, her early game isn't necessarily the smoothest. It's not going to be the smoothest thing, and that's because she is a red elemental tank, and most of the characters like Leanne that you're going to be starting with are red. So you're kind of stacking a lot of the same color. Still, if you're a veteran of the genre, you like the design, you're looking for a tank, I do think Veronika is pretty good. She has this ultimate here, Spirit Circle. It's a single target strip on a single enemy. All the buffs that you strip, they get reapplied to your entire team. And then she gives this Soul Ward effect to everyone on your team. This is basically immortality from other games. the characters just can't die. They can't have their HP fall below 1 until they at least take a turn. So just excellent safety net, good buff strip. Obviously better in PvP than in PvE, but still pretty useful. S2 here, Soul Bloom, very, very powerful move. It deals damage to all of your opponents and then also generates a massive shield for your entire team. Again, despite the fact that she's been nerfed, I do think she is a very good character. Just again, I had a pretty rough time based on my gacha pools. Like I didn't get things like Chiaki or Kraken or Obel early on. So I had a very rough time because I was stacking a lot of red heavy characters. So like I said, her early game isn't the smoothest, but I do think that she is worth a look at. She is going to get stronger essentially the longer you stay with the game. After Veronika, we're going to talk about a new character. I think this probably is my most controversial pick here of the video, and this is Mia. So this is like a support healer hybrid. And the problem with, I guess, Mia is that you will be, after 7 days, getting Ling Luo, who is pretty much just a general purpose, really powerful healer, one of the best healers, if not the best healer in the entire game. And the game already starts you with a healer in Dorothy. So this one is probably the one that might be the least desirable on the entire list, but the character's kit is just so well-rounded. I find it hard to believe that you won't find some use for her in the first 7 days, or you just won't find some use for her as you kind of progress towards the late game. So the basic attack here gives a shield to somebody on your team and has a built-in damage reduction passive for her. So she's going to get reasonably tanky as your team starts to build up a ton of buffs. Her S2 Cascade is one of the only dispels pretty much in the entire game. I talked about this in the SR video, but there's very few buff dispels from what I've noticed in Etheria Restart. This is an AoE buff dispel, and also it pushes back all enemies on turn meter, so it gives you some tempo. And then the ultimate Sunny Sky does literally everything you could possibly ever want on a support skill outside of like amping damage, right? It's an AoE heal. It reduces all of your allies' skill cooldowns. It cleanses debuffs. It extends the duration of your buffs. It just does a lot. The character is tanky, has rare skills, and traditionally very powerful skills as well, right? I've used this for like Terramaton, for like late game farming for that, if that is something that you're interested in. Again, new character, only been out a couple of days here, even on the early access server, but I think there's a lot of potential in this character, which is why I wanted to highlight her here in this video. So now let's move on to the blue characters. We're going to start with Borgne here. So this character is just honestly a very powerful DPS that's just super easy to build, which means that he's going to be great to recommend for people who are just picking things up. And that's because of his passive here. As you can see, Borgne increases his max HP by up to 500% based on the skill level, based on his attack. So you essentially stack a bunch of attack, he just gets a bunch of tank stats for free. Each attack also deals damage, additional, like kind of proportional to his max HP, but he can't land critical hits. So you don't need to build crit hit or crit damage, which are traditionally things that your damage dealers need early on. So you don't have to worry about how your equipment rolls or what kind of stuff you get. Just stack as much attack on this character as possible. He'll get tanky and do good damage as a result. He has built-in lifesteal, so you don't have to worry too much about his sustain. And then his ability here, his ultimate, right? It's an AoE attack, dispels buffs again, which is really rare in this game, it seems to be. And then if it actually defeats an enemy, you'll get an extra follow-up attack. It ignores passives. Just, it's an AoE attack, has a strip, super easy to build, built-in sustain, very tanky, right? Not much else to say, super easy character to play. After Borgne, we come to Rosa. This is probably the character, it's either this one or the next one that I'm going to be starting with. This is another new character that's only been out a couple of days on the early access server, right? So how Rosa works is based on this passive right here, called the Stalker. Whenever she lands a critical hit, she inflicts this Bladeheart Bloom debuff on them. Bladeheart Bloomed enemies take 15% more damage, and whenever anyone on your team crits an enemy with a Bladeheart Bloom, she will immediately follow up with her basic attack, Insane Crash, right? Which is not only a decent damaging attack, but has the ability to also push back the enemy's turn meter. Now, if you come from other games that have things like follow-up attacks or dual attacks, you may only be used to them triggering off of basic attack skills. That is not the case here in Etheria Restart. Any attack that makes contact with the opponent, if it crits, is eligible for a follow-up attack, which means you could use your character's AoE ultimate attack. If it crits and there's a marked enemy, you follow it with a basic skill, which means that this character is going to just be spamming her basic attack skill over and over and over again throughout the fight. And her ultimate, obviously, is just a great way to mark all enemies. It's an AoE attack and a slow, perfect for just marking a large group of crowds. And then you could just go nuts with whatever you want, your AoEs and whatnot, and just watch her go nuts with tons of basic attack skills. Usually, I try to recommend against taking damage dealers early on unless they're super easy to build. Largely because they're not super effective early on because you won't have the stats to make them truly great. And usually, they're the first things to get power crept in turn-based RPGs. So it's not something for like the final release I might recommend. But for the beta, if this is a character that interests you, I do think she is very strong from what I've played so far. Now, after Rosa, we come to Tiamat, and I'll be real with you. I think if you just want to know straight up what is the best thing in the entire game to start with, I think it is Tiamat. I think this character is just absolutely absurd. So her basic attack skill has built-in true damage, and she does more damage just for building tank stats. You don't need to build damage on this character to get good damage out of her. On top of that, she has built-in damage share, which is ridiculous for any tank in any game like this. So the fact that I don't need to equip an item or anything like that, like a shell, to get damage share, right? That's ridiculous. And whenever she gets hit, she kind of builds up this stack of bloodshed. And when she gets to full stacks of bloodshed, it immediately becomes her turn. She gets a heal, and then she turns into her dragon form, which just does a ton of AoE true damage with built-in lifesteal. So she's just going to have built-in sustain, big damage for just building full tank stats. And on top of just the fact that she has the transform and all that, huge shield for her entire team. Healing also built into the shield. And then her ultimate is an AoE provoke with built-in true damage, essentially. So it's like, what does this character not do as a tank? Big damage, good utility, team healing, provoke. There's nothing else to say. The character is just absolutely insane. So if you just want to know, what do I think is the safest, best thing to start with, is Tiamat. After Tiamat, we come to Tsukiyo Mi. And this character is another new one, and I think she is very, very interesting. So first off, all of her moves scale off of her max defense, so she's kind of like a defensive bruiser, but she has a lot of utility, which means you have a lot of flexibility in it, how you build her. You can kind of build her as like, kind of like a tank, kind of like a DPS if you want, or kind of like a support. Her skill 2 here, Beast Swarm, AoE Silence, that's obviously more oriented for PvP, but more importantly, it reduces all skill cooldowns of every one of your team. Which means if you get enough of these effects on your team, you can kind of cycle through your abilities on your whole squad very quickly. Going to make it super easy to farm, clear content, build very powerful PvP teams. And then her ultimate here, Golden Hour, attack and speed buff for everyone on your team, as well as a 100% turn meter increase for a character of your choice. So the character is just going to be accelerating your offense, just really strong support skill here. Skill cooldown reduction, again, ridiculous skill in any turn-based RPG. And then she is basically, just like with Tiamat, getting damage for building tank stats. So I don't think she's as good as Tiamat, but still a very strong character from what I've tested so far. Next up, and probably the last one here on this video here, this will bring out our 9th character. This is going to be Kloss. So I'll be real with you, the main reason I am putting Kloss on here is because she is the fastest character in Etheria Restart. And in any turn-based RPG, fast is usually broken. So the first thing I did when I started playing this game is ask myself, who's the fastest character in the game? Because there's no way they can really be that bad. And looking at Kloss's skills, I don't really see her as that bad. So her core mechanic here is this hacking progress. Essentially, she hits enemies with her abilities, you get this hacking progress debuff on them, and it stacks up to 3 times, right? So for each stack of hacking progress on the character, they take more damage, they do less damage, and they are slowed. And once you get enough hacking progress on them, it converts to hack in, which means that it's like a super amped up version of that effect, and it can't be dispelled, right? As for her actual moves here, the ultimate, AoE defense break. One of the most busted skills in any of these PvP turn-based gacha games. And again, it's on the fastest character in the game. The only downside is that it doesn't strip your opponent's immunity, which means that it's not like a guaranteed like I win button if you're trying to play very aggressive in PvP. But even then, defense break is always good in these games. So having just a defense break on your character for PvE content is super good at just amping your team's damage and kind of blowing through content, clearing harder content that you otherwise might not be able to. And then this here, the skill 2, it's basically a CR pushback. Those are usually really good turn meter pushback. Again, I haven't really played with this character. I've watched people play this character. I really think that a character with this set of strong debuffs that is this fast, there has to be something here. So even if I'm like wrong, I still think it's worth exploring the character overall, right? I'm not super confident on it, but in all my years of playing these turn-based PvP gacha games, fast characters are almost never bad. So that's going to be it. Those are the 9 characters I think that are at least deserving of a look to start your Etheria restart journey. If you think I'm wrong or you have any other questions, please, would love to know any and all comments down below. And as always, enjoy the rest of your day, the rest of your week, and I'll catch you in the next one. Later now.